You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down smooth. Hey!
Spanning the continent to bring you the truth about cannabis and marijuana law reform.
I smoke pot and I like it a lot.
The Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation. Now, here's your host, Radical Russ Belville.
Good day, tokers and tokettes and non-token lovers of liberty, and welcome to the show. It is Thursday, July 24th, 2014, and it's got to be 420 somewhere in the world. It's also got to be my mom's birthday. Happy birthday, Mom! Love you. See you soon. Also in family news, I learned yesterday that my oldest niece will be moving from Boise, Idaho to the Portland, Oregon area. So more Radical Russ family. Makes me feel loved. Good thing. And also, speaking of feeling loved, we've got our love coming from Colorado. Priscilla Sybin is out there for us. How you doing, Priscilla?
Oh, a mile high in Colorado, Russ. How are you?
Me too. Even though I'm at sea level. I don't know how that happened. Actually, I went shopping yesterday at our 24-hour outlet and got some good stuff here. We've got some Cinex. That's a 22.7% THC. We got a Girl Scout cookie, 18.1. And we got a Sour D at 23.4. So things are hopping right here at Rolla J Studios.
I wish I was there.
I know. I wish you were here too, but we'll get there someday. I'll be in Colorado. We'll do a show there together. How's that?
Oh, yeah. Sweet. Let's do it.
All right. Well, Priscilla Sybin's got our 420 radio news. The headline's coming up right after this first break. And in the news today, we've got a new study on the economic impact of marijuana legalization in Oregon. Chris Christie, the corpulent governor of New Jersey, is in Colorado, and he's got some things to say about marijuana legalization. Senator Rand Paul from Kentucky is trying to help protect medical marijuana patients. We've got Oregon medical marijuana patients who run daycares who are in danger of losing their licenses. We've got a new campaign on edibles in Denver to tell you about as well. All that coming up right after our first break with Priscilla Sybin and our 420 radio news. Then after the news, we're going to go behind the headlines where it's time to take a look at football. And once again, we've got a big mega star wide receiver in the NFL who is getting busted for weed. We told you about Josh Gordon a few months ago. Now we've got Justin Blackmon from the Jacksonville Jaguars. We'll tell you all about that and why it's stupid to be punishing these athletes for their use of cannabis. Also on the show today, we're going to go back to Colorado and speak with Leonard Freeling. He's a speaker with Law Enforcement Against Prohibition, as well as an active member of Colorado NORML and the NORML Board of Directors. We'll get his take on what's happening on the latest in Colorado legalization. And then to close the show out, I've got time for a radical rant. We've got more tossed salad for you, where salad is Stoners Against Legalization article of the day. Yes, we did it in 2010, we did it in 2012, and now we've got some very desperate people in Oregon who there's just no perfect legalization for them. Nothing you can do could work, so they're going to oppose it all. We'll just tear that apart brick by brick. And speaking of New Approach Oregon, I spent the morning today, I put together a hyperlinked text version of the New Approach Oregon measure. It's 52 pages long with a clickable hyperlinked table of contents and references all throughout it. So if you want to know exactly what the Oregon legalization law will be and be able to use it with copy and paste as well to get it to your friends through email, that's available at the Radical Russ site, radicalruss.com, right at the top. So check that out. And then in hour two, Toker Talk Radio will take your calls at 971-533-7111 and chat more about the news of the day. Speaking of the news, Priscilla Sybin is next with your latest headlines.
You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation.
420 Radio, the activist radio station.
Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz thinks it's okay for medical marijuana patients to go to federal prison. On May 30th, she voted against an amendment that would respect Florida's new laws and protect Florida's patients. Even though 88% of Florida voters support medical marijuana, why would Congresswoman Wasserman Schultz vote to send patients like this to prison? Is Congresswoman Wasserman Schultz out of touch with Florida?
Weed Nerd, replaying Tuesdays at 1 Pacific on.
I don't use marijuana, but as a teacher of 36 years, I can tell you lots of other people use it. I don't believe in prohibition. I don't think it works. Prohibiting it hasn't stopped anybody from getting a hold of it. I would like to see it regulated so that maybe kids can't get a hold of it so easily. I know they get a hold of it now very easily. I support a new approach to marijuana. I support legalizing it. It's with us. It's not going to go away. And if we can get money through the taxation, we can also educate our kids about it. That's why I support it.
It's time for the 420 Radio News, covering the latest headlines in consumer cannabis, medical marijuana, and industrial hemp. Transcripts of 420 Radio News are available daily on our website at 420radio.org. Now, here's Priscilla Simon.
Hey everybody, it's your 420 Radio News for Thursday, July 24th, 2014. A new study estimates that legalizing marijuana in Oregon could produce $38.5 million in new taxes annually. That's equivalent to less than 0.5% of the state's general fund budget of $8 billion a year. But the projected revenues are also nearly a quarter of the entire budget of the Oregon State Police. The study estimated that about 1.3 million ounces, the equivalent of about 86,000 pounds, of marijuana would be sold through the legal market in the first full year. At an average tax rate of $28 an ounce, that would produce $38.5 million for the state in fiscal year 2017, says the study. The measure would tax producers at $35 an ounce for the most potent parts of the marijuana plants, $10 an ounce for leaves, and $5 for immature plants sold to home growers. In contrast, Washington levies taxes at all levels of sales and production, producing legal prices reaching over $700 an ounce, according to the Econ Northwest study. Oregon's tax rate is much lower, to the point that prices on this side of the border could be as low as $140 an ounce, the study says.
$140 an ounce?
Yeah!
Yeah, let's hear it for that. Okay, so you think that when Oregon is selling weed, legal weed, at 1/5 the price of Washington State, that's not going to motivate them to want to change those tax laws a little bit? This is the scenario I laid out for I-502 haters the whole time. It's going to be high taxes. It's going to cost so much. I'm like, yeah, maybe, but not forever. Once it's legalized, we're talking about the laws of supply and demand, and the supply is a weed. It's an inexhaustible supply, right? So we are eventually going to get those prices lower. I do like when they talk about making $38.5 million in taxes, how they try to quantify it, though. It's only 0.5% of the state's general fund, or it's a quarter of the budget of the state police. You know what else it is? It's infinitely more than we're bringing in now.
While in Colorado on Wednesday, Chris Christie said, quote, he's not backing off an inch from his previous comments against the state's decision to legalize marijuana. Quote, what I said is what I believe, end quote, the New Jersey Republican governor said. Quote, I think legalizing marijuana is the wrong thing to do from a societal perspective, from a governmental perspective. End quote. Well, medical marijuana is legal and highly regulated in New Jersey. Christie has repeatedly shown the use of pot, often warning that he doesn't want his state to end up like Colorado. It's not, quote, it's not just the quality of life we want to have here in the state of New Jersey, end quote, he said in an April radio interview, spurring a wave of headlines. Asked by reporters if he still believes legalized marijuana makes life worse for Coloradans, Christie said, quote, I do think it diminishes the quality of life. That's my opinion. It doesn't mean that Colorado is not a great place. End quote, he added. Quote, I'm sure it is. I think it would be greater if you didn't legalize marijuana. And get out of here.
Get out of here. What is this governor doing tromping around? I think we have some audio from the governor. There you go. Yeah. Yeah. Now, folks, before you accuse me of making a fat joke that I have no room to be making, that's just because he's a Republican. It's the elephant is the symbol of the Republican Party. If I was going to go for a fat joke, I'd have gone with, whales. There we go. Now that's a fat joke. Chris Christie is so reprehensible on the marijuana issue, and I really don't understand, even from a political standpoint, what he's trying to accomplish. If his goal is to try to run for president in 2016, does he think that being the super tough on pot guy is going to win him votes? Those people are dying. Those people are shuffling off this mortal coil. They are drawing the curtain and joining the choir invisible. Their metabolic processes are of interest only to historians. I saw Monty Python live last night. You'll have to excuse me. But Chris Christie, this makes no sense. Can you not see the handwriting on the wall that legalization is coming and people love medical marijuana? And I don't know. I think the more he says stupid stuff like this, especially in a state like Colorado, the more he just signs the end of his own political future running for a Republican nomination for president. That's especially Colorado. I mean, you as a Coloradoan, you must be just personally offended by his presence there.
I don't know how he's in a mile-high state and digging himself such a deep hole. I don't get it.
Well put.
Senator Rand Paul on Thursday filed an amendment in the Senate that would protect states that implement medical marijuana laws, as well as patients and physicians in those states from federal prosecution. Paul's amendment 3630 allows states to, quote, enact and implement laws that authorize the use, distribution, possession, or cultivation of marijuana for medical use, end quote, without fear for federal prosecution. There are 33 states that have enacted laws protecting some form of medical marijuana. To date, 23 states and the District of Columbia have legalized marijuana for medical use. Another 10 have legalized CBD, a non-psychoactive ingredient in cannabis frequently used to treat epilepsy, for limited medical use or research. The amendment also prohibits prosecution of patients and physicians in those states for violating federal laws against the drug. Due to ongoing partisan gridlock in the Senate, it appears unlikely that Paul's amendment will get a vote.
Yeah, but here again, we got ourselves a Republican who's trying to position himself for a 2016 run for the presidency. And this one seems to have the right idea, seems to understand that, hey, medical marijuana is real popular. 33 states have some kind of medical, even though, 10 of those are the CBD only states. But that's 2/3 of the United States. Kudos to Senator Rand Paul for standing up for patients and standing up for states' rights and our ability to, just govern ourselves. I hope this does well for him. I don't know about the rest of his positions, but anytime there's a major mainstream politician who's on the right side of marijuana reform, we got to make sure the people know that and try to have him pull others in his party that way. It can only be good for us.
Right. 5 Oregon home-based daycare centers are owned by people who have medical marijuana cards, officials said, prompting Governor John Kitzhaber to say they have to choose between their business and their pot. The State Office of Child Care has long viewed medical marijuana use as a private health matter that isn't disclosed to the general public or parents of children at the centers. Providers have conditions attached to their care licenses allowing them to use marijuana as long as they lock up the drug and paraphernalia, avoid smoking it in front of the children, and have another adult present while under the influence. The state, however, changed course following media scrutiny. Parents of children at the 5 centers were notified last month that the owners had pot cards, and the names of the centers were made public.
Yeah, more discrimination against the users of the least toxic, least side effect laden medication
Medicine,
that they could possibly use. I'm sure, and obviously if someone's around children, a parent or a daycare worker, we don't want them to have, pipes all over the place and weed, easily accessible, or even be smoking in front of the kids. And not because smoking is somehow evil, but, the smell of it and the smoke in their face, and they're little kids. And I can understand that. And reading deeper into the story, one of the daycare workers doesn't even smoke pot. She's using salves. She's just using, creams. And they want to take away her daycare license for using a marijuana cream that has no intoxicating or impairing effect whatsoever. Another one talked about how, she used her medical marijuana for fibromyalgia, but never on the job, after work, locked away, all that kind of stuff, never available to the kids. This is just a witch hunt. And again, it was going on just fine. The Office of Child Care didn't care until the media started poking at it and got some, reaction from, the nattering nabobs out there that think, oh my God, marijuana, it's got to be terrible. It's got to be bad. What about the children? And now these people are in danger of losing their businesses, losing their licenses, and losing their jobs. I don't think this would be happening if they'd happen to find a six-pack in the back of someone's car, or if they found in their purse a bottle of OxyContin or something like that.
Right.
Whenever it's marijuana,
Oxys are okay.
Yeah, whenever it's marijuana, they got to discriminate.
There's a new campaign in Denver to try to prevent overdosing on marijuana edibles. The state had recommended 10 milligrams of THC per dose. Now, a new campaign is going with even less, especially for those new to pot edibles. Representatives from Colorado's marijuana industry gathered on Wednesday to unveil a new campaign. It's called First Time 5, as in just take 5 milligrams of THC in marijuana edibles for beginners. Many marijuana edibles were sold in 100 milligram packages. Now, edibles are coming in smaller doses. One organization is passing out cards that warn to start with 1 serving and then wait because it can take up to 2 hours to feel the effect. The goal is to get signs in as many dispensaries as possible and educate those behind the counter to recommend that amount as well.
Well, that's interesting. Now, you, Priscilla, you're out there in Colorado, and I assume you've been to some of these shops before. What's it like when you're trying to get edibles? Do they give you any decent warnings on this stuff?
Yeah, they tell you how much is in the package, and the tenders or the salespeople normally tell you to just go easy on it. It's kind of like the dab rule. Like, have you ever dabbed before?
Oh, yeah.
They ask you, have you ever had an edible before? And so then you can kind of judge, the scope of how much you can take. Non-innuendo, but So I think these cards are a really great thing because of how many people are coming into Colorado and trying all this fun stuff.
Yeah.
I think that this is really important, and I think education is the way to go.
Yeah, and especially it's interesting that the industry's coming in at half the amount that the state was saying. State was saying 10 milligrams. These guys are saying, no, first time 5, 5 milligram, 5 milligram pot brownie. I don't know.
I think it's a smart thing to do.
Yeah. And we want the rollout. And one of the criticisms that I read in the paper here was someone that was questioning, I think it was a reporter that was questioning about, why did this take so long? How come, it had to have, we had to have these high profile incidences before this came around? And it's like, geez, can you cut us a break here? We are starting a brand new legal industry, where we're taking something that was considered the deadly dangerous drug equivalent to heroin and now legalizing it. There's going to be some bumps in the road, but considering how bad the bumps in the road are for the rollouts of other things, Obamacare, we're looking at you. This is hardly a glitch at all, right? People need to get the education on the edibles, and it is happening. And I think we're also going to see a change in the culture, right? I mean, with alcohol, we have a culture around it where you just know not to chug Jack Daniels. It's just, you don't even think about it, right? People understand what proof means, and that there's beers, and then there's hard beers, and then there's wines, and then there's liquors, and then there's, liqueurs. There's all these different things, and they can adjust their intake accordingly. But prior to legalization rolling out, really all that most people had an experience with was the pot brownie or the pot Rice Krispie. You never knew how much was in it or what was in it or how it was, how potent it was. So there's going to be a learning curve. It's happening. People are starting to understand, go slow, take time. First time 5, I think, is a great idea.
I think so too.
Thanks, Priscilla, for the news. And before we end the news, I did want to remind everybody that we do have a posting of New Approach Oregon's complete ballot language, all hyperlinked, clickable links in the contents and throughout the text for you to be able to get straight to the sections and the paragraphs and the subparagraphs to know every little detail about Oregon marijuana legalization. We got some graphics and stuff coming up in our Radical Rant on that too, so stay tuned. There we go. Couldn't wait to get to 420. So it's 420 in the Mountain Time Zone, the home of Colorado legalization. Priscilla Simon's got an important safety meeting to get to. Thanks for the news. We'll see you tomorrow.
See ya.
When we come back, behind the headlines, we're going to look at the NFL once again. The no fun league when it comes to marijuana. .420 Radio, the home of marijuana experts.
Join us for the International Cannabis Business Conference September 13th and 14th in the Portland Ballroom at the Oregon Convention Center. The International Cannabis Business Conference will focus on the emerging cannabis industry in Oregon, the United States, and around the world, putting you in front of the industry's foremost entrepreneurs, political leaders, and attorneys. Also showcasing over 40 cannabis-related industry exhibitors, offering VIP lunches and free nightly networking events. Prepare yourself for America's next great industry.
The pistachio. Green, natural, and available without prescription in all 50 states. He's fine.
Congressman Doc Hastings stood up for Washington's medical marijuana program and patients like Larry Harvey. Larry and his family are being prosecuted by the federal government, even though they were following Washington's 16-year-old medical marijuana law. On May 30th, Congressman Hastings voted for an amendment that would protect Washington's medical marijuana program and its patients from federal interference. Will the next representative from District 4 respect Washington voters? No, before you vote.
Are you a hypocrite? If you live a closeted cannabis lifestyle, you are. Read about 7 people living a closeted cannabis lifestyle who are on the verge of coming out in The Hypocrites by Mara K. Eaton. Available at areyouahypocrite.net. You can purchase the book on Amazon and Barnes & Noble, also available on iTunes. Check out Mara K. Eaton on Facebook as well. Learn more at areyouahypocrite.net. At Herbie's Cannabis Seeds, we pride ourselves on bringing you the best quality seeds from the world's most respected cannabis seed producers, all at the lowest online prices. You can find Herbie's Seeds at herbiesheadshop.com. All cannabis seeds are sold as souvenirs and as a means of preserving cannabis genetics. Herbie's Seeds in no way intends to condone, promote, or incite the use of illegal or controlled substances. We strongly urge all prospective customers to check their national laws prior to placing an order. Herbie's Seeds at herbiesheadshop.com. Proud sponsors of the Russ Belville Show and 420 Radio.
Welcome back, everybody. 24 after the hour. Time for us to go behind the headlines, where USA Today is reporting Jacksonville Jaguars wide receiver Justin Blackmon arrested for marijuana possession. Yep, we got another receiver for the pigskin potheads. As you know, every year when the NFL season rolls around here at 420 Radio, we host a fantasy football league, and my team, the Pigskin Potheads, is staffed only with players who've been busted for weed. And some years we have a good year, some years we have a bad year. Kind of a bad year last year because a lot of our players were suspended indefinitely. This was one of them, Justin Blackmon. He was the Jacksonville Jaguars wideout. He was already under indefinite NFL suspension for violating the NFL substance abuse policy. He was arrested Wednesday night in Edmond, Oklahoma, for marijuana possession and a driving violation. He was the first-round draft pick for the Jaguars out of Oklahoma State, and he was released on a $675 bond. He was already suspended the first 4 games of the 2013 season for violation of the substance abuse policy. He is a 2-time Biletnikoff Award winner as the nation's top wide receiver while he was in college at Oklahoma State, and he was the number 5 pick by the Jacksonville Jaguars in the 2012 NFL Draft. Now, of course, there was some unwise responses from Justin Blackmon. According to the police, when he was pulled over, quote, He did go ahead and admit that there was marijuana in the vehicle. Mr. Blackmon said he had been smoking a blunt while he was driving, and that there was another full blunt within the car in a box. And that's exactly what our officers found in the vehicle. End quote. I don't know how many times I've said it in the past 10 years of being an activist, but you never consent to a search. Do not consent to a search. Stop it. Will you people please stop telling cops that you're committing crimes? So he sat out his 4-game suspension at the start of last season. When he came back over the next 4 games, he was Jacksonville's leading wide receiver, and then got the indefinite suspension for another, violation, right? So out of the first season, his rookie season, he only played 14 games. And then in his second season, plays 4 games, right? So in addition to this, the Jaguars' second wide receiver, Ace Sanders, isn't going to be able to go to training camp and is probably going to get a 4-game suspension for the substance abuse policy. And by the way, in those 14 games that Blackmon played as a rookie, he caught 64 passes, 865 yards, 5 TDs. Last year in 4 games, 29 passes, 415, and a touchdown. Now, this goes along and dovetails with the story that we told a little while ago, a couple months maybe, of Josh Gordon, the wide receiver for the Cleveland Browns, who was the leading wide receiver in the NFL, despite having only played 14 games compared to the other wide receivers getting to play 16. And we've also pointed out in the past how Plaxico Burress and Santonio Holmes, 2 players who in back-to-back Super Bowls caught the game-winning touchdowns in the last minute of the fourth quarter, both have had their incidences with marijuana as well. So there's no conceivable reason that the NFL should be punishing these guys for choosing to use a substance that's safer than alcohol, a substance that actually protects their brains from the jarring effects of concussion, a substance that actually helps to relieve pain and inflammation without the opioid addiction and constipation and other side effects that come with these pills that the NFL passes out like candy. Obviously, this guy is incredibly talented. Zane and I were watching the sports science on this guy. He's got such talent. He creates a throwing target for the quarterback that's as big as a garage door. If you can get it within a garage door of this guy, he can catch it. He's got a standing vertical leap that's as high as Plaxico Burress's, despite being 4 inches shorter. He's only 6'1". It's just remarkable. The guy can snatch a ball out of the air from 11 feet in the sky. Okay? So obviously the guy's incredibly talented. Obviously marijuana isn't impacting his ability to play the game and not causing any other problems for the other players, for the safety, for anything except the NFL's corporate image and their sponsorship by beer and pharmaceutical companies. You don't think those Viagra ads during the NFL games are happenstance, do you? You don't think all of those Coors Light, no slowing down with the silver bullet, Bud Light ads and all that stuff are coincidence, do you? Yeah, that's what it is. The NFL's not interested in protecting these players. It's interested in protecting the bottom lines of their corporate sponsors. And until they change, the product will continue to get diluted as talented players learn they're better off for their bodies and their long-term careers using marijuana than using pills and alcohol. If the NFL wants to keep up, they're going to have to adopt an NBA policy. Don't test these guys. It's ridiculous. All right, we're back with Lenny Freeling from Law Enforcement Against Prohibition next.
You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation.
420 Radio, fighting prohibition since 2012. The Marijuana Business Association, or MJBA, are proud sponsors of the Russ Belville Show. It is the mission of the MJBA to establish integrity and legitimacy, create common market standards, provide market intelligence, and develop best ethical business practices for participants in the emerging legal marijuana industry, including commercial hemp, medical marijuana, and recreational marijuana for adults. Learn more about the Marijuana Business Association and visit mjba.net to join today. That's mjba.net. The law offices of Omar Figueroa would like to remind you to stand up for your rights. If you are detained or arrested, treat law enforcement with respect and stand up for your rights by repeating, "I respectfully invoke all of my legal and constitutional rights. I do not consent to any search and seizure. I want to remain silent, and I want to speak with my attorney." Please contact the law offices of Omar Figueroa at 415-489-0420 or 707-829-0215 or on the web at omarfigueroa.com. 420radio.org presents Gordon Green's Music Planet from Barcelona, Spain. Gordon Green has been traveling the world for more than 20 years, discovering and collecting great music along the way. His mix of eclectic sounds from around the globe prove that you don't have to understand the words to enjoy the music. Check out the show every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific Time with replays Wednesday at 5 and 8 Pacific on 420radio.org.
You know Herb Thrasher from the Herb Thrasher Flower Hour. Now get ready for Herb Age Designs for the proud cannabis consumer. Herb Age Designs, lifestyle gear for the 420 friendly. Herb Age Designs, we've got Frisbee golf discs and durable hemp gear. Herb Age Designs, we've got shot glasses, drinking glasses, coffee mugs, and beer cozies. Check us out on Facebook and online at herbagedesigns.com and follow Herb Age and Herb Thrasher on Twitter.
The International Cannabis Business Conference takes place September 13th and 14th at the Portland Ballroom in the Oregon Convention Center in Portland, Oregon. Featured speakers include Oregon Senator Floyd Przansky, U.S. Congressman Earl Blumenauer, Daily Dish blogger Andrew Sullivan, author Doug Fine, and Harborside CEO Steve D'Angelo. To learn more, visit our website at internationalcbc.com.
One of the most disturbing elements of the Prohibition War is how it's made police the enemy of otherwise law-abiding cannabis consumers. Fortunately, one group of police officers knows the futility of prohibition and reaches out to educate the community and current law enforcement. Today, the Russ Belville Show visits with another speaker from Law Enforcement Against Prohibition with one clear message: cops say legalize drugs.
Welcome back, everybody. 33 after the hour, and joining us by telephone from the Mile High State, we have got Leonard Freeling from Law Enforcement Against Prohibition. How you doing, Lenny?
Casper, I'm doing great. It's great to be back.
Oh, we got you switched on shows. I'm Russ.
Say again?
I said you got your shows switched. I'm Russ.
Okay, I'm scheduled to call in for Casper.
That's fantastic. Oh, well,
what's our topic? I'll talk about anything.
And we're both in Portland, so what's the difference, right? Glad to have you here. Of course, you're there in Colorado, and in addition to being affiliated with Law Enforcement Against Prohibition, we got you embedded with Colorado NORML and National NORML. So you've got some great perspective for us. Maybe we'll just talk a little bit about what's happening lately in Colorado. How's that sound?
I would love to, as long as Casper won't think I'm supposed to be with him. It would be my pleasure.
Okay. The thing that we reported on earlier today has to do with, one of the bumps in the road in the rollout of legalization in Colorado, and that would be the labeling of edibles and, the treatment of edibles. Of course, there have been those high-profile situations with Maureen Dowd and so forth. And we just read today that the industry has come out with this new campaign of First Time 5 to suggest that newbies to marijuana edibles start off with 5 milligrams as their first try. What can you tell us about the move there to get marijuana edibles better labeled and to get better education out there?
Personally, I can't see any downside to controlled dosing. And let me be more concrete. One of the positive sides of vaporizing or smoking is it's been shown that self-titration knowing how much to dose yourself works very consistently. And the thinking is, because it peaks so fast in the blood, that a person takes a toke and knows if that's enough pretty quickly. Edibles, as you know, presents the opposite problem. A person can eat X amount of chocolate bar. I happen to like the fancy dark chocolate ones. And it's unfair to the consumer to not tell them how much dose is there. And just as when you go to the store and buy an aspirin, it tells you how many milligrams of salicylic acid are in the aspirin, and you can count on it being, 5-10% one way or the other. I think that, and I'm making a bold statement, but I think I can stand by it. Generally, anything you eat, you want to know what you're eating. That's easy. And anything psychoactive, medicinal, anything like that, you have extra reason to know how much you're eating. If you eat a candy bar before you go to bed, and it says X number of milligrams on it, and say you're not inexperienced, if it's not really X milligrams and you wake up stoned, that's inappropriate. So I love the idea of the combination of labeling doses, whether it's done in breakaway pieces, however it's done. I like the idea of labeling doses. I like the idea of encouraging laboratories to measure THC content. And as we learn, THC gets all this attention and CBDs get all the attention. And we know that there are at least 80 and maybe 105 or more cannabinoids in the plant. And I was told, I don't know that it's true, but I've been told that basically 6 of them have been looked at. So what we know we don't know is much about the interplay. And I did change subjects, so let's get back to the edible issue. I like labeling. I like being able to know that a candy bar is X number of milligrams. As far as somebody trying something new, personally, I would rather see somebody start with vaporizing because of the self-titration, and if it happens to be something they don't enjoy, they're not stuck with it for as many hours of what they're not enjoying. And if they happen to really enjoy the ingestion of cannabinoids, then they might want to try an edible and see how that agrees with them. The effect's a little different. As we know, the timing is radically different. As far as child-proofing, let's flip it on its head. Let's call it adult-proofing. Because what we really need to do is prevent stupid adults from leaving things where their young kids can get them when young kids shouldn't have them. So it's a stupid adult problem. You wouldn't leave your OxyContin out where your kid could get it. If you had, when I was a teenager, which was in the last century, now it may be much, much younger ages, you'd lock the liquor cabinet. And why should a psychoactive substance be treated differently? And I know people disagree with me, and I know the science is we're learning more all the time. There's an argument. 2 arguments have been put together. One argument is it appears that brain development ends at roughly 25. From there, the people that are arguing against ingestion of cannabis say, therefore, nobody should ingest before 25. The part they conveniently skip over is, we haven't the faintest idea if it's good for you or bad for you or neither. Now, would I gamble with my own brain development? I'm not prone to confessing.
All right.
So we won't discuss that. If he asked me if I was happy with my intellectual achievements in life, I'd have to look you in the eye and say, I am. Whether it's drawing or playing guitar or the rabbi part of me that helps guide people, the counselor at law part is closer to that. I'm not dissatisfied. Not Stephen Hawking, Mr. X, the original Cosmo. I'm blocking the name.
Carl Sagan.
Sorry?
Carl Sagan.
Of course. He said fairly clearly in his writings that we found out after his death that he was Mr. X, and he extolled the virtues and said almost word for word, I couldn't have done what I did without that particular input. Now, do we know that scientifically? No, maybe he would have done more. Maybe he would have done less. But after a while, when we look at the list of stupendously high-functioning, successful people who, oh, by the way, smoke pot, after a while, one really has to say, it just doesn't look like a problem. An interesting example of that, and interrupt me anytime you want. I take well to it. I interrupt everybody else.
Go right ahead.
Where was I going with that? I interrupted myself, and I figured out the solution to short-term memory issues. It's very simple. Wait 10 minutes.
All right.
No longer a short-term memory. It becomes long-term.
There you go. Hey, I did want to ask you a little bit about the possibility of public places for marijuana consumers. That seems to me one thing that's still not quite settled as far as Colorado goes. Get these tourists that come in, and maybe what's motivating them to want to get the edibles is they know they can't smoke in their hotel. They can't smoke in the public. They can't go to the park or wherever. Is there any movement or any plans here to change law or submit initiatives or whatever it might take to have the equivalent of a cigar bar for marijuana smokers?
There are, and I haven't visited yet. A lot of places I haven't visited yet. There are some private clubs that apparently are being polite enough and low-key enough so they're not getting hassled. One private club that did get hassled got quite a bit of press. To understand this world is the same old line. Follow the money. Mm-hmm. The government's not going to give up money. They're not going to give up votes. We never need to remind them, and some of my friends don't get this yet. We never need to remind them again that 54%, 53 and a fraction, voted in favor of legalization. And since what politicians' primary interests frequently is getting reelected, when 54% says, we think it's fine, there's no way in hell a politician is going to say, well, I'm so principled that I could just never do that. Mm-hmm. Now, are there exceptions? Sure. I wonder if the right to life abortion issue is an exception to that. I'd have to think that through. I'm old-fashioned. I do like thinking. So I do think that with some experience, with consistency of product, and with some planning. So, for example, if I'm at a downtown Denver hotel and I'm going to walk to the Denver Art Museum and then to the new Liebskin building, the addition to it, and the third museum they just added to the complex, knowing that any way that I smoke outside is risky and certainly illegal in most places unless it's a private event like the Colorado Symphony event. Nobody bothered them. It's going to be a problem. can one, say, vaporize, blow it out a hotel window, if the window even opens, and not really give off any odor? Well, we know the answer's yes. And in fact, being the wise guy that I am, I've asked at a hotel desk or two, and the response I got pretty consistently was, we don't want to notice it.
I see.
Basic golden rule: if you're not in someone's face, many people don't care. But assuming that is illegal for the moment, and I don't know that that's all that clear. We do have public smoking laws, and what's in the works now are public vaping laws that are including e-cigs.
To ban them?
To ban them in public places.
Gotcha.
And interesting question. I've seen people walking around in very public places smoking what was either an e-cig or a vaporizer with pot, extract. And I sure as hell couldn't tell. Do I think that's good publicity for the movement? Maybe not. But I don't see that moving in a particularly liberalizing suggestion. I agree with you completely that edibles are a viable solution, and what needs to be taken account, for example, I'm in a downtown hotel, and make it the Brown Palace. If I'm going to stay at a hotel on your bill, I'm staying at the Brown Palace.
Okay.
So the Brown Palace car service will then drive me to the museum and pick me up. So I'm not driving and don't need to think about whether I'm impaired. And I'm putting that down on the list because we want to talk about that for a second. But in any event, eliminate the driving question. Don't do it. If you want to talk about that, happy to.
There we go.
Let's eliminate that for this discussion. If somebody's familiar with edibles, they'll know about how much it's going to hit them. And additionally, they'll know how soon before they take the car service to the museum they want to eat it. Because the time curve is so different. It might take an hour. It might take a little longer to begin to feel the effects. So whether it's somebody that happens to be fused L3, L4, and L4, L5, and walks around the museum with a cane like some radio guests I know with medical cards, who love being on the radio, by the way.
Thanks.
I would want, if I were such a person, I would want to make sure that the pain-killing effect of the edible was nicely at work, because museums are incredibly difficult. You're walking slowly, you're standing a lot. So for lower back, incredibly challenging. So timing is an issue. Timing seems to change. It can be 45 minutes or 2 hours. I suppose I could speculate that that's lack of consistency in doses. I don't know. I do know that there are a lot of people in various aspects of the business that they would make famous health food stores look liberal. They're trying so hard to just do it right.
Yeah. Well, legalization is going to give us the opportunity for that standardization and testing to take place like we want it to. And we're just excited every time we talk to you, Lenny, about what's happening in Colorado and how it's shaping the debate about marijuana legalization worldwide. I want to encourage everyone to check out leap.cc, Law Enforcement Against Prohibition. You can find great speakers like Leonard Freeling in your neck of the woods that come to your local Rotary event or whatever and talk to the folks and convince them that we need to legalize drugs. And, of course, get your support out there for Colorado NORML and normal.org as well. Lenny, thanks for joining us, and we'll get you on the show again soon. Thank you.
I look forward to it. Thanks.
All right. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we will have time for a little bit of Radical Rant, just pruning the shrubberies of some stray tossed salad. Stoners Against Legalization article of the day coming up next in the Radical Rant.
Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation.
420 Radio, your ticket to the Boston Freedom Rally. At Royal Queen Seeds, we've got premium feminized cannabis seeds, including auto-flowering varieties for the medical cannabis user. We've got bulk shipments available and new CBD oil. Plus, we accept payment in Visa, MasterCard, and Bitcoin, as well as other methods. Check out our website at royalqueenseeds.com for more information. We are located in the Netherlands, and we have online grow experts ready to help you now at royalqueenseeds.com. In the interest of fair and balanced journalism, the Russ Belville Show presents the anti-drug public service announcement of the day.
Hey, you ever thought about taking drugs?
I don't know. Well, I never really thought about it.
Think hard. The first hit's free, but you find me when you need more. The choice is yours.
What do you think? No, it's just not worth the time.
A message from Concerned Children's Advertisers.
This has been the anti-drug public service announcement of the day. To cure this sort of reefer madness, listen to the Russ Belville Show every weekday on 420radio.org. New Approach Oregon is a coalition of Oregon citizens who believe that treating marijuana use as a crime has failed, costing taxpayers millions in law enforcement resources. Our approach will regulate, tax, and legalize marijuana for adults in Oregon. We can move Oregon forward and create new revenue for critical services. Visit our website at newapproachoregon.com or our page on Facebook at New Approach Oregon. Thank you.
Handle the truth.
Entirely legitimate topic for debate.
You have offended my family.
Hey, this is great, man.
And you have offended a Shaolin temple.
One major responsibility is to encourage people to use less drugs.
I know nothing.
I support a change in law to end federal criminal penalties for possession of up to 1 ounce of marijuana.
We don't need no stinking budget.
Homosexuality, immorality in general.
Now in the century you have slurred the meaning of the words we, the people.
Be warned, this is not your mother's marijuana.
You could ask yourself a question. Do I feel lucky? Well, do you, punk?
I want to ask you a bunch of questions. I want to have them answered immediately.
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Radical Rant.
All right, as you know, yesterday we had Anthony Johnson, Chief Petitioner of New Approach Oregon, on the show because Oregon is on the ballot for marijuana legalization come this November, as well as Alaska and likely Washington, D.C. So 3 places voting on legalization, plus Florida voting on medical marijuana. And just as soon as it was announced, I was pointed to an article that someone had written that was against New Approach Oregon. Another Stoners Against Legalization. This is the phenomenon that we coined way back in 2010 when Prop 19 was on the ballot in California, and the leading voices against it were medical marijuana profiteers. And in 2012, in Washington State, when they had I-502, and the leading voices against it were medical marijuana profiteers. And so today, we've got a second article to take a look at that has been dredged from the deepest bowels of the Reddit politics board. And, you know, when they asked George Mallory, why do you want to climb Mount Everest? His response was, because it's there. So with that in mind, I will use this space in the show to rebut the idiotic arguments made by the Stoners Against Legalization. And I know that they're probably not even taken seriously by anyone anymore, but you know, you never know. I mean, after all, nobody took Kim Kardashian seriously at first, and look what happened. All right, so the Redditor who posted most of these screeds goes by the handle Lootaluck. Luck, right? Loot, like money. All right, so Lootaluck says, a large portion of the marijuana community is opposed to this measure. a large portion? How large a portion? There are 436,000 Oregonians aged 21 and older who are using marijuana every year. There are 314,000 that are using every month. There are 108,000 Oregonians using marijuana who are 21 years age of older or older who are using 20 or more days a month. 2 out of every 3 days or more. There are 64,838 medical marijuana patients, and there are 32,796 medical marijuana caregivers. So just how many of any of those groups have you heard from? Taken any polls, any samples? No, it's the folks you hang out with and run around with. Okay. So a large portion of the marijuana community is opposed to this measure. We just don't know how large. He continues to say, the prohibitive limits on possession and production for personal use. Prohibitive limits. Oh, terrible prohibitive limits. Those limits of an ounce on the road, a half pound at home, a pound of edibles, a 6-pack of liquids, an ounce of hash oil, and 4 mature plants for personal use. Oh, stop oppressing me. Help, help, I'm being oppressed. What else? Oh, here's one of the objections. The gift of 15% of the tax revenue to the police. The gift of 15% of the tax revenue to the police. Well, this is true. The state police under the New Approach Oregon plan will receive 15% of the tax revenue. But understand this. Most Oregonians like police. They are fond of the idea of police protection. And we've had numerous instances where we've talked about budget cuts and cuts to the state police to the point where they have fewer troopers on the I-5 than Portland has, on a street, and that's not good for public safety. Furthermore, the police and law enforcement in general are a very strong lobby in any state, Oregon as well. And they get a lot of their funding through the corruption of asset forfeiture and the grants they get for making pot bus. So when New Approach Oregon legalizes, they lose that. Now, they should lose that. They should not be able to be policing for profit. But they got to have a budget. And it's not like the government is just going to, the state government's going to immediately increase their budget for the same amount as they lost from all the grants and all of the seizures. So 15% to me seems like a pretty savvy political buy-in to get law enforcement to, if they don't support the measure, at least not openly oppose the measure. And besides, most people like cops and want our state police to be funded. Here's another concern. The Oregon Liquor Control regulation of the industry, specifically the issuing of licenses for the production, distribution, and retail. Well, somebody's got to issue licenses, right? Why would any other entity do it any better or worse than they will? We form a brand new commission or something? It's really water under the bridge at this point. It is set, but I don't think this is any sort of, consideration of how badly they might regulate is no excuse for not legalizing. And besides, in New Approach Oregon, it adds a line in there that specifically gives the people the right to sue the Oregon Liquor Control Commission. And the way that this new approach is set up, with all its intents and purposes and the way it's linked to all these other laws, it will make it very easy to show in a court of law that if the OLCC was planning some, bureaucratic bullshit to try to stall, run out the clock, to deny enough licenses to make this thing work, it'd be very easy in court under the lawsuit to be able to show they were violating the intent of New Approach Oregon. We're going to talk more about this in Hour 2, Toker Talk Radio. We'll take your calls at 971-533-7111. If you got any questions about Oregon legalization, I can probably answer them. For Zane, I'm Radical Russ. Thanks for joining us. And until next time, take care of each other, Tokers, and we're live from Flint, Michigan tomorrow.
This is the Russ Belville Show. The Russ Belville Show is blogging and podcasting daily at radicalruss.com.